Hello, Year 11s. All right, so we're now up to 1.2, spotting a business opportunity. So let's just dive straight into our content for today. All right, so what we're going to cover in this video here, we're going to be looking at 1.2.1, which was your customer needs, then moving straight across to point 2, which was market research. Part of 1.2 covered the market research methods. Then we move on to point 3, which is market segmentation and the market map, and also the competitive environment. So jumping straight into 1.2.1, customer needs. So identifying and understanding customer needs covers a number of activities, which includes researching the market to identify customer needs, making decisions about the price, quality, choice available, and convenience in order to satisfy the customer needs, and keeping up to date with changes in the new market in order to attain repeat customers and attract new customers. So all with a view to generating sales, surviving and making a profit. Now we'll obviously talk about the aims and objectives in topic 1.3, but these are trying to understand everything that a business does. Obviously they want to succeed. So that should always be where you're coming from in your BLTs types, if you're answering these types of questions. But we want to focus on what it is that the customer's needs are. So there's 4 that we're going to be visiting in a moment. So focusing on meeting the needs and wants of the customers for the profitability, a business needs to understand the needs and wants of the customer, identifying gaps in the market to make sure that they can obviously supply something that others aren't or can compete in it, developing a product that addresses those needs and wants, considers the costs of meeting the customer's needs. So that can also be how much customers are willing to pay for that good or service, as well as how much it's going to cost you to provide that. Informing the customer that it's done all of these, so communicating that you are delivering on what their needs and wants are. If customers don't know you've got that to offer, they can't come to you to purchase it. If you've done this before or better than your competitors. So it is obviously looking at delivering what the customers want, but also making sure that you're able to compete with it in that market. So it's important to research the market to identify its customers and the needs. If you don't do this, it will result in an inability to compete or make profit. So if you're trying to compete based on price and your profits are so low, it's not beneficial for you as the producer or the service provider. And if your costs are too high, you're not going to be able to compete in other areas as well. So it's finding that right balance. So the 4 customer needs are, so the first one we're going to look at is price. So your market research will determine how much customers are willing to pay for the item. It'll also consider what competitors' pricing is and also the state of the economy. So if you are, an example that I like to give, if the state of the economy, like at the moment, how the economy with inflation being so high, if you are a producer of rice and you are selling it, your customer is Aldi, so Aldi are going to sell your product on, you might find that you'll perform really well in the current economy because more people are going to be looking for a more cost-effective rice. So you're obviously going to sell it to Aldi because they're a cost-effective supplier, like a provider to customers in the supermarket market. However, if you're specialty rice and you've got these grains that have been imported from, the far ends of the world, people in this economy may not particularly want that because that is going to be a lot higher in price. So what is it that the customers need? So there's external factors, so the state of the economy, your competitors, but also making sure that there is a market risk. So if you've got this really unique type of rice, working out how many people actually want to purchase that type of rice is also a really important part. Who's willing to pay for it? Sorry. So the next one is quality. So it's about meeting the expectations of the customer. If they're met, then the business has satisfied that customer need. So McDonald's customers don't expect a fine dining experience because they expect fast service, standardized product, and a reasonable price. However, if you're going to an actual, a fancy restaurant where the expectation is going to be like you were expecting high quality food, high quality service, high quality meats, and so forth, that's all part of the quality. So saying that, it's not always just about having a high quality product. There are some circumstances where customers expect a lower quality, or they're paying for a much lower price for something, expecting a lower quality, and it's about meeting those quality expectations. So you can go into Sainsbury now and you can pick up a bar of chocolate for about 45p. Your expectations of that chocolate will be quite low just because of its price point. It's less than half the price of a lot of other chocolates in a similar range. But if it's still an acceptable quality, well, customers may come back and keep buying that because that's the quality expectation of what they're purchasing in that respect. So this is the idea. So if you compare McDonald's to an Argentinian steakhouse, customers are generally prepared to pay more for a higher quality, or at least the perception of higher quality. Generally, they are expecting a better service than what they would get from McDonald's, a bit more personalised. But also, you would expect the waiters or waitresses to be able to give you more information about where that meat is from, how long it has been in a certain process for, what would go nicely with that, like what type of sides or what kind of wine pairing or something, or a recommendation of how it should be cooked to get the maximum flavour. So that's part of the quality. So there's the quality of the service and the quality of the good. So that is the product there in going to a more fancy restaurant. So another customer need is choice. So it's important as different customers have different tastes. Customers need to be able to choose certain things. So for example, when choosing meats, you've got low fat, standard or halal. So also some customers are now vegetarian and vegan. So this is what we talked about in our last topic about the changing customers' needs, is that we are all quite diverse in what we actually look for. I look for gluten-free products because I can't eat products with gluten in it. And it's about making sure that I have choice of options. So now most supermarkets have some gluten-free or the free from section. There's normally some choices there of things that I can have. However, Aldi or Lidl do not invest much in their gluten-free product. So therefore I would tend not to shop there because they don't really have that choice available for me. So these are the things of what my expectations are as an example, but all customers have. So for example, businesses like Amazon, they've been highly successful because they've offered a huge choice of products in relation to their books. You can get almost any book on Amazon. But when you think about other big retailers like Asda, even Sainsbury's, Tesco as well, they've all got a section of books there available. There's normally only a really small section of books you can buy. So if you just want to buy any book, there's normally something you can find that you might like to buy. Generally, they'll have stock things that tend to be bestsellers or things that they know people will buy. But if it's more of really unique books or books by a special author or books on a special topic or something, they generally won't sell there. So that's kind of the difference of if you want a particular book, you're going to generally go to a book specialist of some kind to get what you actually want. If you're just looking for any book, a standard retailer might suffice. So it's all around what choices you are, what your expectations, what you need, what you're choosing for is what your customer needs are. Convenience. So this has become a lot more important as lifestyles have changed. So people are less willing to wait for a product to be delivered, particularly as they have busy lives. So back when I used to order things online when I was about 18 or 19, so not that long ago, it was quite normal to expect things to be delivered because they would come from a really foreign country. They'd probably come via boat to Australia. And it would generally take 4 to 6 weeks. Now we have these expectations. We want things instantaneously because that's what a lot of competitors are doing. So now to stay competitive in this business, things have to be fast. I think the most that I'm hearing that people seem to be happy to wait for is 2 to 3 days. So generally you'll get your order within the same week is the idea. So it's the ease of access to the product. So for convenience, so that could be like parking or home delivery. So if, for example, there's something from a particular shop that you want, but let's say that particular shopping centre where that shop is, they charge a really high amount for parking. That's going to not be convenient because it's going to feel like you're needing to pay more just to go get that item from that shop. So parking needs to be readily available. People generally want it to be close to the shop that they need to go, especially if they're just going to pick up the one item. So it's all considering the time taken to receive the product. So if you're having a delivery, if you're going to have something delivered the next day, some shops, I know Amazon sometimes do this depending on the types of arrangement, can have same-day delivery and so forth. Store opening hours is also a consideration for convenience. So if something is open really late in the evening, so that if you work odd hours or antisocial hours, which generally means like you're working overnight shifts, if you work for the NHS or something and you have night shifts in hospitals or something, that you can go at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. the next day and your store is already open, or you can go at 10 p.m. on your way to work to pick something up. That's all part of convenience. So the internet has made it easier to order products, and firms have improved distribution methods to ensure that customers receive their product as quickly and conveniently as possible, because this is how they stayed competitive. Amazon has capitalized on this for their business model. All right, so that is part of customer needs, those 4 IDs that you need to remember: price, quality, convenience, and choice. They're the key IDs that you need to be able to unpack and remember. So remember those 4 and be able to explain of why they are customers' needs. So your first question for today is explain one benefit to a business of meeting the customer's needs. So you can unpack this as you wish. This is a 3 marker, so thinking BLT. You can pause the video here, and we've got some sample answers at the end of the video for you. All right, let's keep going. 1.2.2, market research. This is probably the biggest part about 1.2, so remembering the different methods and so forth. So the first ideas that I want you to come up is, so the purpose of market research is to identify and understand the customer needs, identifying gaps in the market, reducing risk, and to inform business decisions. Thinking about this as well, try and think of why that these would be the purposes. So reducing risk is a really big factor, and that's something that a lot of people do raise in a BLT. And that's obviously if a customer does the research to make sure that there is a market for the product or service that they're going to sell, that will help to know if it's worth the investment. Because generally to get a new idea off the ground generally requires a big time investment, but also a financial one as well. So by doing your research, it reduces your risk of business failure. So it's about being able to unpack those ideas. Identifying gaps in the market is understanding what customers want. If customers are telling you no producer is giving them this particular good or service that they would like, that helps uncover those gaps. That is a great place for you to start. If nobody else is doing what customers want, there's an instant market that's waiting for your good or service to come to market. Obviously, the market research itself is identifying and understanding the customer's needs. So maybe they find that there are people in the market who are delivering on what they want. However, they are not actually able to reach it, or it's not affordable. So maybe they're looking for a more affordable alternative, and maybe that's what the gap is. Obviously, when you know what customers want, when you know what the market wants and so forth, and you've got a better understanding of the lay of the land, that should inform your business decisions. So you're not going to waste your money down a pathway that there's just no market for. So next exam practice question. Discuss the benefit to a business of identifying a gap in the market. This is a 6 marker. So if you can't remember the format for a 6 marker, go back and watch in the first video, the introduction to webinars, in the taxonomies. We unpack what these discussed questions look like. Ultimately, you're looking for 2 BLTs. Generally in a discuss, if it doesn't specify a benefit or a drawback, it's 2 BLTs. You want to look at 2 benefits of that. So an analyze question, you're generally doing a benefit and a drawback, or a good and a bad, or a positive and negative. With a discuss, it'll either tell you that it's focusing on an advantage or disadvantage. So in this case, it's talking about the benefits. So it's 2 BLTs of a benefit. Your answer still needs to show some sort of consideration for a balanced answer. So think about how you might want to counterbalance that while still talking about benefits. Give that a go. We'll show you some sample answers at the end. Pause this video, and for the rest of you, let's keep going. Okay, so what is market research? So market research can be categorized into primary research. So when we talk about primary research, this is first-hand information gathered about a market. So this is research that is done by you or about the business primarily. So this is literally where you might go and email your customers and ask them certain questions. You might bring customers in. You might bring prospective customers in from your target market. But this is research carried out specific to your business needs. The other one is secondary research. So this is also called desk research, which is information that has been collected by other organizations. Now, the reason we sometimes call it desk research is because literally you can go onto Google, type in what you want to know about a particular market, So this is less specific to your business, but research has already been done. So it can be done in a number of different ways. And we'll have a look at how they're divided. But what I want you to remember, because it's really important, because sometimes you get questions specifically related to primary market research or secondary market research. Remember, primary is something that is specific to your business and something that is carried out by you. It's your data. These are the things that you're actually actively going to find out, and that's why it is specific to your needs. Secondary research is just information that already exists. You might just be collecting pieces of information that exist for whatever reason. It's all stuff that you can find online. Sometimes you might pay for it. If someone's already done all of this research, it's going to save you a lot of time if you pay for it and you've already got some quality data that you can work with. That's your secondary market research. Don't get the two confused, because that is a problem area where a lot of people stuff up in exams, especially because the methods for each are really different. It's really important that you understand which one is for which. So think about what they are actually before you argue for or against them. So just for some examples of secondary market research. So advantages are the information already exists. Sometimes it's being compiled by experts in an industry, and it's often quick to access because literally you can Google it, you can download it and so forth. These are some better pieces of information. So disadvantages of this, because obviously this information exists on the web, things can obviously change at a rapid rate. So it can also be out of date. So the data may be from 2 or 3 years ago, and you might think it's still relevant, but something's changed inside that market sector now. So you are operating off assumptions made from data from a few years old. Sometimes it's considered to be expensive. Now, expensive can be marked as a disadvantage for both primary and secondary. In secondary, it's expensive if you are buying it from a firm who's carried it out. So they may have done a whole piece of market research on a whole sector of the market. And for you to obtain that research, you might have to pay a few £1,000s for a full detailed report. Primary market research can be expensive because it's a lot of time involved. And obviously your time costs money. So that is how that can be expensive as well. So I just want to be really clear when we talk about it being expensive, you need to contextualize as to why it's expensive. Otherwise, you may not get marks for it because it's considered too general just by saying a disadvantage is that it is expensive. The other disadvantage of secondary market research is it's not specific to your business. So it's stuff that might be based on a particular market sector, but you might be doing things differently to your competitors. So you might be doing the right thing and there might be some negative things happening in the market that it's not actually addressing the questions that you need to know. So this is why it's not specific to your business. So always make sure you've got advantages and disadvantages already of all topics, because these are the types of ideas that you'd need to unpack in an exam. All right, I know this looks quite detailed. Obviously, you can pause this and read through these dot points, or you can go back and revisit the slide packs that you did when you studied this content from 1.2. However, methods of primary market research. So when we talk about surveys or questionnaires, these are the ideas that we are sending them out to customers to collect information and their views. Surveys are generally short, closed questions. So when we talk about closed questions, that's like one answer questions, like yes or no type questions. And it's really easy to make for quantitative data. So we're going to talk about that in a moment. But so surveys are generally closed questions. Questionnaires generally include a mix of some short answer questions like closed questions and maybe some more open questions that might be specific. So which types of dinners do you like to eat most nights of the week? So that could be really asking you to specify, well, I like eating fish and chips on a Friday and I like eating burgers on a Thursday and things like that. So more specific and unique that do require deeper analysis. Surveys are generally like flick boxes. They might be multiple choice questions, really easy for data entry and things like that. Now, other methods of primary market research, focus groups is another big one that we talk about, or interviews. The difference between them. So a focus group would be, you might get 10 people in a group, sit them around a table and ask them certain questions about different flavors that they like or different products that they like using and things like that. And they actually engage in a conversation. There's generally someone there to help unpack their ideas to make sure they're being really clear and articulate about what they're doing. Disadvantages to focus groups is sometimes there are really strong personalities in the groups. So some people just go along with what they're saying and they don't get to speak up and give their opinions, which kind of invalidates the whole point of the focus group. So you're going to be really careful at who you have in a focus group to make sure that you're getting really quality information. Interviews are more one-on-one, so it might be one person you ask questions to, but obviously interviews are very time-consuming. So if you spend an hour for each interview and you need to get at least 100 pieces of information, it's already 100 hours of time lost in interviews, which is why focus groups are considered more efficient than interviews, but there are obviously the drawbacks there as well. Observation is another format of it. So observation is done in many different ways. Sometimes it might be a case of you might be observing customers' choices in a supermarket. So there might be someone, although it might be a little bit creepy, it might just be someone sitting in a supermarket watching to see what types of items people choose in a particular section, or looking to see how people's head movements go. So do people look on the lower shelves? Do they look higher on the shelves? Are they looking for alternatives? Or do they tend to just look at the things that are eye level in that particular category and just grab whatever things from the shelves? So ultimately what you're looking for is to understand consumer behavior. Observations happen in other ways. So sometimes when they're trying to understand choices that children are making or products that children like to go for in a business context, you've got psychologists who might watch groups of children in different environments. So sometimes that can be a simulated environment. So you put people, so that could also include adults as well. You put them in a simulated supermarket environment, ask them to do their natural grocery shop and how they do that. Or it might just be watching people in their natural environments. Sometimes to understand child psychology of children's decisions, they might have a psychologist go inside, they're invited in by the parents to watch their children just to make observation at decisions that the children make. This is obviously then applied to understand shoppers' psychology, so the way we shop, the way we look for things, and other forms of observation now in modern techniques is, I don't know if you're aware that when you're searching things online and something comes up, do you accept these cookies? What that actually is an online way of seeing how long you're spending on an internet site, how long you read up on a particular product, whether you put things in your shopping cart and do you check it out straight away? Do you pay for it straight away and order it? Or do you save your shopping cart? Do you come back to it? Do you log back in the next day and then have a look? So looking at your behavior for your online shopping as well. So that's another form of observation. So being able to unpack those ideas is all primary market research. Methods of secondary market research are a little bit more simplistic. So things like we talked about using the internet for information that's already readily available. You can Google it, you can download it and so forth. Other internet research, you've also got statistics published by the government, and there's also government reports as well. So governments actually do market research because they want your business to succeed. They want you to be competitive. If your business is doing well, you're going to make more money. If you're making more money, you're probably going to be paying more taxes. If your business is doing well, you're probably going to employ more people. Those employees are going to pay more taxes. So businesses want your company to do really well. So that is also why governments have it as vested in interest. They want certain markets to grow, especially if it's markets where things are thriving overseas. They may want the UK market to open up because that's going to be good for the UK economy as well. So other examples include like the Office for National Statistics are ways where governments collect information about business or consumer behaviours and make that readily available so anyone can go and download those reports. We talked earlier about market reports. That might be a research organisation. So two examples of that is Mori and Mintel. They go and do a whole heap of market research based on different sectors, and then they sell those reports back to people inside those sectors. Now, you don't have to buy those reports, but if your competitors are buying those reports and have that market intel, it might be in your best interest to know what your competitors are looking at to still make your decisions. That is why that they can become really valuable and why they can charge thousands of pounds just for a report. So these are some examples of your secondary market research. So we talked a little bit about before about qualitative and quantitative. So quantitative data is data that can be expressed as numbers and can be statistically analysed. So this is when we talk about surveys and having short questions. That means you can survey thousands of people and summarise that data to give you insights about that information. So if you've got 1,000 people who have filled out an online survey, you can then kind of go, okay, 68% of all survey participants prefer fish and chips on a Friday night. Or it could say, 20% of all survey participants don't eat dinner 3 nights of the week. So it's able to give you insights around your group. So obviously when we talk about sampling, so that is a sample of the population, And you need to work out what that right number of samples, depending on that market research, to work out who your product is being targeted for. That's the idea of making sure that you've got enough data to make good quality business decisions. Because obviously, if you only survey 10 people and you're trying to capitalize on a whole age demographic, you're not going to get, all you're going to do is make insights from the 10 people that you've surveyed, but it's probably not enough that really paints a picture for a whole age demographic. So that's quantitative data is obviously statistical information that you can sum up really quickly and you can use for large pieces of information. Now, qualitative data is information about opinions, judgments, and attitudes. So it's more of the touchy-feely type question. So it might be like, were you happy with your service? Explain what we could have done better. So that's someone's personal opinion of, the people on the front desk could have been nicer, or they could have carried our bags to our room in a hotel, for example. So that's specific information about someone's experience. It's really hard to summarize that for a whole group of people unless you've got those reasons put into quantitative categories that people can just tick boxes and so forth. The qualitative data, when you're collecting it, and so you're collecting people's opinions, like in focus groups or interviews or observations, these are things that you're going to need to input and spend a lot more time inputting that data to make it useful to make business decisions. Because obviously, if just one person's opinion was they wasn't happy with something, that might not be enough to make business decisions for. But if you've done interviews with 100 different people and, more than half of them have talked about the quality of service, well, then you've probably got a big problem, and hopefully they've given you enough personalized information that's going to tell you how you can improve it. That's your qualitative data. So it's really important. A lot of people mess up these two terms. When I think of quantitative, I think of many, I think of numbers, quantity of data. So quantitative data, we think of being able to collect a lot of data really easily. Qualitative data, I think of quality, I think of those touchy-feely kind of attitudes, words, how people felt about the product. So hopefully that will help you be able to distinguish between the two. Don't get them confused. All right, let's go for another practice question. So explain one impact of making decisions based on unreliable market research data. I think I might have given you a few clues to that already. Have a think about it. This is an explain question, so this is a 3-marker. So again, we're thinking about our BLTs. You can pause the video here, give yourself 3 minutes on the clock, and have a go. Okay, let's keep going. All right, 1.2.3, we're getting through it. So this is market segmentation. The big trap that a lot of people fall out when they see this term, they start to talk about how people just divide the market. That is a big mistake that people make, and they don't actually explain what is meant by it. So they don't normally either, if they do know what they mean by market segmentation, they don't actually explain it properly, or they kind of talk in such general terms, the examiner kind of goes, this person doesn't know, they're just taking a stab in the dark, kind of, they're just going with this. So your market segments are how you divide your target audience into which market you want to focus on. So what I want to quickly show here now is looking at those ideas for examples of what market segments are, so that you're able to dissect that if you get it in a case study, or if you're needing to contextualize it you've got an uncontextualized question and you need to unpack the idea. So one example is age and gender. The example I've got here is for a makeup business. You might target females aged 19 to 35 in the UK for a certain type and style of makeup. So they'd aim to make it affordable, contemporary, and on trend in comparison to an older clientele where more conservative colour choices are included. So the idea of what we're trying to make it there is for women. So we are focusing on women's makeup. So that's one market segment. Then you can then divide that into the age groups. So younger girls probably tend to wear their makeup. They like to have, like the Amy Winehouse style of eyeliner and, bolder looks on their faces and fake eyelashes and things like that. I am generalizing here. Everyone is very different, but if you look at trends in different markets, that's probably what they're looking at. Whereas if you look at someone who, a woman who's over the age of 60, she might not like such bold colors on her face. She might like a more pale foundation, or more earthy tones for lipstick, or might be focusing more on moisturizers and things like that. So we'll want different things for their skincare regime. So that's the whole idea, is that they have different looks and tastes in different age brackets. Obviously, you can apply this in men's fashion as well. Like it's not just focusing on gender, but obviously, if you are a producer of men's clothing, you're going to be focusing on your market segment will be on males, and you might then focus on different age brackets in that, and same for females clothing, focusing on females. So other examples is toys for children. So these are things that you're going to focus on. You don't really care if an 18-year-old wants to play with a Barbie. They might still, there's no judgments here, an 18-year-old might still want to play with Barbies. However, that's generally not going to be your target market for that product. Pension plans for people aged over 60. A lot of young people don't care about pension plans, but also pension plans for people aged over 60. They may have already had a pension plan in place for years. They might not be looking for new ones. So it might be need something to entice them that's going to be more beneficial for them. Someone who's in their 30s might be looking for pension plans because they're looking to start their retirement now for their, having money for their retirement. So there's no point having advertising cars to children because children can't buy cars, children can't buy. So this is where we talk about age and gender types of market segments. There we go. Here's your definition. Market segmentation is the process of splitting a business target market into different groups. So the ones that I'm going to break through here is age and gender, which we've just done, income, location, and lifestyle. So these are all types of market segmentation. So it's about finding a market of customers, so your target audience, and focusing your business towards them. Now, just because you might have a product that appeals to the masses, you might still target different market segments to advertise them differently as a way of trying to get more of that market penetration to make sure you've got that better growth across a wider market area. You'll focus on different market segments at the same time for one product. So income segmentation considers how much people earn and how much disposable income they have. When we talk about disposable income, it's about how much money they have just to spend on, luxury goods or things that aren't necessities. But even as well, you might, depending on, especially in a cost of living crisis, you probably still will consider how much disposable income someone has, because if they can buy a bag of 50p rice from Aldi versus a £2 bag of rice from Sainsbury's, that might be a factor in what decides of where they're going to go shopping. So it's really important in certain products. So a business selling high-end luxury cars or expensive jewelry would need to target people that have a high level of income. That's not to say people with lower level of incomes don't buy luxury cars or jewelry, but their target market is probably going to be people who have money that they can be a bit more frivolous with their spending. Location is used to split up a target market based on where people live. So a business might choose to target customers in its local area. So if you're a corner store, there's no point targeting people who live on the other side of the UK, because they're not going to come to your corner store because there's about 1 million other corner stores between you and them. So thinking about that. However, if you are a multinational or a national company like a Primark or something, where everyone seems to know your brand, you might have a national campaign. But for example, Primark isn't in a lot of countries. So Australia doesn't have Primark, so they're not going to see, and I'm only using that example because I'm Australian, we don't see any signs or advertising for Primark. Even if you can buy it online, there's not much of a market for it in Australia. So we're not the target market for Primark. But when you think about things like McDonald's, they have a standard menu, but actually in different countries, because of different tastes, because of the location. So for example, McDonald's in India, they don't have the Big Mac. And that's also because there's not a big market, because it's most people in India don't eat beef products. So they'll eat a lot more chicken. So they don't have a Big Mac. They have a burger called the Big Maharaja burger, which is basically like a Big Mac, but I believe it's with chicken patties. They also have a paneer burger, so they've got more vegetarian options as well on their menu. And that's at all the McDonald's in that country, but that has basically been determined. So their target market, so their menu has been based on what people in that market want. So McDonald's can still compete in markets that don't eat beef products, because obviously McDonald's is predominantly beef products. It just gives them an opportunity of how they can compete their business in other areas. Lifestyle segmentation considers what sorts of lives the people in a business's target market lead. So these will take into considerations for hobbies, sports interests, and other things customers do in their spare time. So one example might be football teams. Not everyone follows a football team, but you might have certain areas where the football culture is really huge. So you might start to see more advertising for those local football teams and things like that in the area. also to obviously buy merchandise and so forth. So they're types of things that people also, if you are got a niche hobby, like if you're into drone flying and you've joined a club where they do drone flying, they get together on the weekend to fly drones and so forth. Not everyone's into drones, so that's quite a niche market. But obviously the people who are producing drones at affordable levels, they need to find a way to get into those markets so that people who are in that target market can purchase their products. So it's about breaking in there and finding ways that you can. So it might be sponsoring events, things like that. So obviously when you watch a sporting game, you see them, a lot of people sponsoring them. So that a lot of them are sports, leisure wear and things like that, but also a lot of fast food. For whatever reason, I think a lot of people like eating fast food while they're watching sports games and so forth. So these are lifestyle segmentation. So you're targeting certain people based on a certain hobby of where they're going to be able to see your advertising. Whether it's linked to that hobby or not, that's where you've decided to address that target market. Okay, so another practice question. Explain one benefit to a business of segmentation. 3 marker, give yourself 3 minutes on the clock and BLT it. Okay, let's keep going. So 1.2.3, so this is a continuation of the same topic. So this is the market map. So what is a market map? Now, the challenge of an entrepreneur is to position their product so that it meets the needs and wants of customers. A market map shows the range of positions a product can take in a market based on 2 important factors. So when we talk about important factors, these are the things that we're looking at here. So you might look at high price versus low price, basic quality versus high quality, low volume versus high volume, necessity versus luxury, light versus heavy, simple versus complex, low tech versus high tech, and young versus old. So it's about taking 2 of these areas and basically mapping them against each other. So for example, like in a car company, you might look at cars that have high speed versus low speed, or engine performance and so forth, because a lot of cars are not designed with any racing qualities. They're just designed to get people from point A to point B so that they are a functional vehicle. Some people really like the luxury features or sports car elements. They like a bigger engine, guzzles a lot more fuel. Some people want a more fuel efficient car. So that could be another important factor. So these are the types of things that it looks for in a market map. So a market map will take 2 of these and plot them against each other so you can actually look at a market. So here is an example of a chocolate bars market map. Now, you may not agree with this. This may have been based on data. This may have been based on opinion. And that can be useful as well. So this could be part of your market research. You could be getting your prospective customers in your target audience to plot these for you. So the 2 important factors I've got here is quality. So you've got low quality at the top, high quality at the bottom, and low price to the left and high price to the right. The whole idea is these products on the side here are then plotted on the market map of where they think. So what you can see here, so obviously you can see it scattered throughout, but I can see here there's, to me, in my opinion, there's a big gap in the high quality and low price box. And I also see that there's also still a bit of a gap, I would argue, in the low quality, low price box as well. That's at least based on this, because there are obviously a lot more chocolates in the market. But this could be, you might just be looking at certain brands, or you might literally be trying to focus on a particular part of that market. The idea is that you can plot it against there and determine if there are any gaps, or also work out where your fiercest competitors are. So if you know that you sort of are in the same category as the chocolate orange section there, you might go, okay, if that's my biggest competitor, what are they doing well? What can I do better? So that's how we would use a market map to guide our business decisions. So another practice question. So considering the market map on the previous slide, explain one way in which Embrook Chocks my apologies, we're missing one of the examples here. So if Embrook Chocks is a chocolate manufacturer, how could they use this map? Actually, we haven't missed it. It's just I prepared these slides a little while ago, so my apologies. So, okay, so in this example, we've got Embrook Chocks is a chocolate manufacturer. How could they use this map? So BLT it. This, I'm giving you a contextualized idea of how you could unpack that just for a 3 marker. So pause this question. You can go back. I'll quickly show you the market map again. Have another look at it. Now go back and answer this question. Pause the video here, and we can have a look at an example of an answer for this at the end of the slide pack. Let's keep going. So 1.2.4 was the competitive environment. The competitive environment, so this is where there are many businesses selling similar products. So a business should look at the below to determine where they are placed against their competitors. So these are things like, where is your quality? How is your customer service? Where does your price compare? Your location. So how can customers get that from you? Whether is it online? Are your competitors doing it online? Or is it a physical presence they have to come in? Or is that part of your business plan? So for example, when Apple first brought out their iPhone, you couldn't buy any of their iPhones online. You had to go to an Apple store, and people lined up for days to get it because they had a limited amount of stock. And that was part of their competitive environment, making the customers compete to get the item. And also in the product range is also a factor. So if you are a retailer, what is your range of products that you have? Can someone come to your store? Like, is it like a Tesco where you've got a clothing section, a butcher section, a dairy section? You know, you've got all of these things with heaps of products in each of those sections. Or is it more of a specialty store where it specializes in a specialist quality of product? So a specialist clothing store, or is it, you know, a designer label? Or do you stock just a few selections of designer labels and so forth? So this is part of the competitive environment. So another thing that you can do as a tool in the competitive environment is a SWOT analysis. So a SWOT analysis is basically to help you discover. So the first factors of a SWOT analysis is S&W. So I want you to always remember what the SWOT stands for: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. So your internal factors are strengths and weaknesses. So it's your way of looking at what your business does well. So what are you doing really good in your business? What's going well? Is it that you're making good sales, you're selling out of items really well, or whatever? Is it a good brand, strong sales performance and whatnot? Your weaknesses are what are the things that you recognize that your business needs to do better for? So is it that you've got customer service needs to be improved? Is it that you're selling out of too much stock, that people can't get the stock they want, and so forth from there? So that's the idea as well. Is it that you take too long to get back to customers when they have a problem? Do you not give refunds back straight away? Does it take customers 4 weeks to get their refunds back? And so these are what you're doing internally in your business. This isn't necessarily looking at how your business compares to other people. This is about you recognizing what you're doing well and what you're not doing as well within your business. Now, the O and the T, so we set out opportunities and threats. These are your external factors. These are happening outside of your business. Your opportunities reviews the business's future opportunities. So this could be like new technology, making it easier to manufacture certain goods. So if there's a new machinery that's coming out that can save heaps of time, that's an opportunity for you to invest in, because it might then turn into a strength. The other thing there that you've got there is threats. So it's reviewing the business's future threats. So often threats are mostly from increased competition. So how easy is it for someone to come in the market and steal your customers versus even people in the existing business? How can they get your customers as well? So also there are external threats as well, like the economy. So when people's disposable income is heavily reduced, they're not going to buy a lot of products or certain things, especially if you're in a luxury goods area. So this is a threat that you need to be aware of what you're going to do. So when COVID happened, no one saw that coming. So very few businesses had a plan of what we would do during a pandemic. So that is a threat to a business. So now it's quite common, you'll see in businesses' risk mitigation plans, is now they have pandemic planning of how they can fight to keep their business alive, even during times with unforeseen business downturn. So using a SWOT. So what you need to do is match your strengths with opportunities. So turn your opportunities into a strength, and convert things that you recognize are your weakness. So this is the best part about analyzing your business and going, okay, we don't do that well. How can you then turn that into a strength? So if you've got customer service, you're getting really bad customer service reports, turn that weakness, invest in customer service, making sure that all of your staff have correct expectations of how they need to treat your customers, and make that a strength. So the next time you do a SWOT analysis, so some companies will do them quite frequently, they do happen in businesses. They're quite detailed reports. So that's a way that you are using your SWOT analysis to inform business decisions. All right, here's another practice question. So Lyle has finished a mechanic's apprenticeship. He's looking to set up his own car repair workshop, but has identified that it's a very competitive market. Outline one way in which operating in a competitive market will impact on his decision making. This is a 2-mark question. So remember, outlines is finding one of those details and then giving an impact that links specifically to his scenario. So I've given you some context there. This is something you might probably see in a section B. So how would you then answer this outline question? You can pause it here, have a go. Okay, and let's continue. All right, that is the end of our 1.2 for the content. If you are doing your answers later, you're going to go back and do the questions. Now's your time to stop the video. If you've already done your practice questions, let's have a look at some sample answers for those questions. So explain one benefit to a business of meeting customer needs. One benefit of satisfying customer needs is making them happy. This is because if you constantly make them happy, they are more likely to make repeat purchases. Therefore, you are more likely to attract new customers and gain popularity from positive word of mouth. So you can see how they're all unpacked, they're all linked, and you've got your 3 marks there. So next one, discuss the benefit to a business of identifying a gap in the market. This was your 6 marker, so you need 2 paragraphs, the way we talk about it, 2 BLTs. So by identifying a gap in the market, a business will know that no other businesses are serving those customer needs. This because they will less likely face much competition in that market. Therefore, they could charge a premium to increase revenue. All those ideas are linked. Then you go for your second paragraph. So because the question is about benefits, so we do another benefit. So another benefit is reducing risk. So that shows the balance in the answer. There's positives, and this is still a benefit, but it's more of an inward looking, it's looking at the business as opposed to just what your customer market is. This is now how it's going to benefit you internally as well. So another benefit is reducing risk. This is because finding a gap in the market means there are customers who want your product. Therefore, you can keep refining your product until it meets the needs of customers without the threat of competition for a period of time. Now, I say for a period of time because obviously if there aren't anyone servicing those needs, people may start to come in and start competing against you for that same market share. But the idea is that if nobody else is doing it, you've got that whole target market to yourself that you can capitalize on that market. Explain one impact of making decisions based on unreliable market research data. So if a business has unreliable data, they may produce a product that isn't wanted. This could be because they haven't effectively surveyed the right sample of their target market. Therefore, it could be a lot of wasted money in producing these products, resulting in cash flow problems. The ideas are linked. Even when we're talking about finances in the last part of the therefore, it's not about making less profit or risk going bankrupt. They're really extreme and don't necessarily show a well-considered answer. This is showing about explaining of what is the impact of them making that bad decision. So therefore, it could be a lot of wasted money in producing these products and then recontextualizing it, resulting in cash flow problems. So it's not about bankruptcy or things like that at the end, but it's about linking what it is to your previous points there. Explain one benefit to a business of segmentation. So by segmenting the market, a business can meet the specific needs of each segment. Because they can develop their products to address specific needs of each segment, therefore, their products will be more attractive to the specific segments, which can build a stronger brand awareness in specific groups of people. It's got them all there. Again, with the 3 markers, as long as you make your valid point and actually impact it at least twice, you can still get your 3 marks, but making sure your impacts are closely linked. Explain one way in which Embrook Chocks, a chocolate manufacturer, could use this map. So Embrook Chocks could see that there is a section of the market not being catered for, because this can be seen in the market of high quality and low price. Therefore, if Embrook Chocks could produce a chocolate that serves these customers, then it could be very successful. So it's not like that it will be successful. So be really careful in your language when answering. It's that it might, because it's about a future thing. We've got no guarantee of what will definitely make something successful or not, but it gives it the opportunity that it may be successful if they focus on these ideas. So that's something also to be aware of in your answers. Almost there. To outline one way in which operating in a competitive market will impact on his decision making. So here we are. Lyle must differentiate his service from that of his rivals in order to be competitive. That's your link to your knowledge. This means he may decide to use a cheaper supplier for his parts and supplies. This is only an example. This is not what you had to do. It's outlining any different type of thing that he could do that it relates to his decision making. So in this case, we're just using to differentiate his service because that I think is the most obvious one. Go for simple that you can explain really well rather than trying to think of a really unique answer because you don't want to run the risk of confusing yourself and confusing the examiner. As long as you can show the examiner that you understand what the question's asking you to address, you're linking it back to your knowledge, but also showing that you can link it back in the context of that case study. Make sure you've got 2 clear sentences that have 2 clear distinct points. Otherwise, you're only likely to get 1 mark. All right, and that's all for us for 1.2. I will see you for 1.3.